AI in the travel, here we go. Got that AI on the low, taking flights to and fro, booking trips in a snap with a simple chatbot flow. AI, revolutionizing how we roll. Gonna hop on a plane.
Welcome to another episode of the Everything AI in Travel podcast, where we hear from the makers, shapers, and buyers of AI technology in the travel space. Here's your host, Tony Khan.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Everything AI and Travel podcast. Now number 3 in the Apple podcast in the travel technology section. So I'm very happy about that. And thank you for everyone who is listening, subscribing, commenting, and telling your friends that this is a place to learn more about AI and travel. And that's what we're going to do today with a guest that I've been wanting to get on for quite some time. Someone who's described as a veteran, very kindly, in the industry. Welcome to the show today, Mr. Robert Cole. How are you doing today?
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Tony.
No, absolute pleasure. You're a rock star on LinkedIn. I really love the stuff that you put out there. You challenge people. You always got a great opinion on what's happening. And it was actually one of your posts recently that made me want to get you on, or reminded me that we needed to have you on the show. First, for those who don't know you, you're the founder of Cheetah. Tell us a little bit about Cheetah and how that came about in the first place.
Sure. Cheetah is my consulting practice that I've had, started officially in 2004 after we exited a company that we started up. And I took 3 years to head a product for the largest tour operator in North America, embedded at a client. But aside from that, I've had my consulting practice, which is really, I joke, I operate at the intersection of marketing, information technology, operations, finance, and I try to keep those groups from killing each other. So.
Very good. It's a very important role and much needed. So if we go back a bit further, how did you end up in this crazy world of the travel industry in the first place?
Yeah, it's interesting. I started off actually in high school taking over my sister's rent in resorts, and I saw their management goofing off and playing tennis and golf and having that looked like a great job. And little did I know. But yeah, I did everything. Yeah, washed dishes, bussed tables, checked people in, did all of that through college. Got a degree in hotel administration from Cornell, and then actually had some great experience from there. And it's interesting, at different points in my life, I've had these forks in the road, which have just been amazing. I wound up getting an internship with Four Seasons Hotels when I was a junior in college, or the summer going into a senior. And they gave me 3 projects. One was how to do a marketing analysis for a hotel. The second was how to design a national sales office network. And the third was how to advertise the travel trade. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. I'm an idiot. I have no experience. And they said, that's okay. We don't know how to do it either. And you have time. And so that's where my path started. And I wound up going with Four Seasons. I eventually became their corporate director of marketing planning. Left there, much to the chagrin of my wife, who still hasn't forgiven me for it. Her comment was, I went to a group called Journey's End, which became the fastest growing company in all sectors across Canada. And it was an economy lodging group, right? Just very minimal hotels. My wife wanted to know if they had soap in the room. So I knew where she stood. And they had running
no Four Seasons, that's for sure. It's no Four Seasons.
Running water as well, and electricity. So we had
all the mod cons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that, and then wound up doing a startup representing independent hotels. We started with 1 property and then grew it to about 300, merged with a central reservations group called Anasazi, who built a lot of stuff, including the Thisco switch. Grew that to 600 properties. Left there, wound up running Sabre's global hotel program for a number of years through the birth of Travelocity and business travel solutions and direct connect and availability, where we were running about half the world's automated hotel transactions through the platform. Spent 1.5 years in budget rent-a-car running distribution. Left there, joined a group, another startup, and we got the U.S. patent on dynamic packaging, introduced that concept to the industry.
What era are we talking there? How long ago is that?
That was 2000.
Okay.
Which still hasn't really happened. Actually, that technology is now owned by Expedia. We'll never see the light of day. It's somewhat contrary to Expedia's business model. God love them. I don't blame Expedia. Yeah, we were doing packaging for Orbitz, Marriott, United Airlines, and we sold to Cendant. Cendant then wound up going through some things and sold that in a bundle of things with Orbitz off and became part of Expedia. But yeah, they don't really want the dynamic packaging thing out in the wild. Then yeah, I think I mentioned doing the Mark Trav travel thing after I started that. But yeah, my consulting practice has been great. I worked at the beginning with Sidestep, the first meta search group, doing a lot of hotel stuff. I worked with National Geographic, setting up their lodge product, which unfortunately isn't going forward because National Geographic Lodges, that was actually sold. And there were a couple changes. I think it's not a product anymore. National Geographic, I think, is owned by Disney or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I've done a lot of different things from loyalty programs, finance, all that sort of thing. And I guess we're out of time for the
That's
whole
it.
show.
Well,
So it's
and
been great
that was
being
Robert.
on.
And if anyone needs to hire Robert, that's his resume, which is
Yeah. I've
incredibly
done a
impressive.
yeah. And I've done a bunch of things for I was on the head of board of directors. I was on the founding interoperability committee for the Open Travel Alliance, just to try to swing us back into the tech and AI world. And I'm part of the American Hotel Lodging Association Global T100. So we talk a lot about. And I'm also focused senior research analyst for lodging and leisure travel. So a lot of my focus there is on social commerce, which I know is a big area for you. Agentic AI and digital identity are my three pillars on that.
Couldn't get three bigger pillars in the environment that we're in the
It's
travel
pretty,
industry at the moment. I was going to ask you about the Phocuswright analyst piece and how you get that gig. I think you've explained it in the background that you've done.
I've been doing it. I worked with them before, but I think I officially became an analyst in 2012 or something like. So I've been doing it for 14-ish years, something like
Yeah,
that.
for sure. And for those that don't know, I'm sure most people listening to this do. It's the place to go and get great research content, and they're great people at Focus.
Great conferences, yeah.
Great conferences, yeah, putting out great stuff to advance the industry, which is fantastic. And let's move to AI, given this is the Everything
Sure.
AI and Travel podcast. Tell us about maybe your backstory pre-generative AI, because I'm sure you probably did quite a bit in that field. And then did you see like the generative AI boom coming? What are your thoughts kind of how that started?
Yeah, it's interesting in around 2010, 2012, started doing a bunch of work, again, through Phocuswright, through some other consulting thing, especially in big data, basically semantic tech stack type things of where things really needed to go. And then with kind of the whole machine learning, phase and things like that, just what those processes were working from revenue management or a variety of different groups or consulting projects and programmatic advertising, all sorts of different aspects of it. Really was very heavily involved in that side. So I've always been one who loves to be on the bleeding edge of technology and kind of the eat your own dog foods, saying, okay, I've said this is pretty good. Let's see how this works. Yeah, so I've been on all of these platforms since the beginning. I have basically pro subscriptions. My big go-tos right now are, and I use them for very different purposes because they have very different skill sets, at least in my experience with them. So Claude now is and I did a lot of work over the last year with Claude writing a proof of concept we can talk about a big project that I've been working on for the last couple of years, but did a lot of development on that as my development partner, which was very enlightening of it doing amazing things before it did really stupid things. But I'm using Gemini for search sort of thing, basically for a lot of reasoning and things like that. I'm using the tool set within Claude. I have a couple little tools like a reasoning gauntlet. Like I'll write something up and then it's basically kick the crap out of this Claude. Tell me where I'm making bad assumptions. Just don't be my friend. Don't say good things. Just rip it to shreds, which I love, right?
Very good.
Yeah, so I'll use, and Gemini's not very good at that stuff. Quite honestly, it really loses the thread. Not even that. It just does, its reasoning is just not where Claude's is. Yeah. But search is amazing. It searches better than Claude. So I'll use that for search. And then I use basically OpenAI just for a lot of ad hoc, do this, do that. But yeah, I have Claude doing things where I'll go see some new thing pop up and oh my God, it's 100-page research article on it. That's, oh boy, here we go.
Into the summary for me.
Yeah, but the summaries I now have that in a project within Claude and a specific skill, and it does certain things the way that I want and the way I want it produced, and then I can use that. And so I have a massive, because of what I've done for now a couple of decades on my consulting practice, I don't know how many gigabytes it is. It's close to 7,000 research articles, which is my research library, just since I've been using basically the AI tools maybe for the last year, I probably have 600, which have these organized summaries linked off to the actual document that they have, which again helps me out tremendously to go, wait, where is it? Where was that damn thing? Right.
Yeah,
And it
for
will
sure.
help me organize all of that. Yeah.
And obviously, you've been in travel technology for a long time, as we heard from
Mhm.
kind of your resume there. But are you technical, or what is your technical level of proficiency? And I ask because most people listening to this are not, right? And I think what's
Right.
kind of holding a lot of people back is I'm not technical. So, like, I think this is all just a level above me. But, like,
Yeah.
once you get
Yeah.
started, you realize that's not the
No,
case, right?
I
So,
am not a technologist. Literally, CSS and I do not speak the same language. Right. You do not. It's not good. But again, I've gone and built my own websites and developed all sorts of things, and I understand how they work, right? That's always where I've been. So, for example, at Sabre, I had all the product management for all the hotel related stuff, and actually for a while the car related stuff going through that. So I had to work with the project managers, I had to work with the development teams, and I've always had one foot in technology and one foot in kind of the product and marketing side. So I can speak the language you don't want me built. I'm smart enough to realize what I'm not good at, and I
hmm.
want the experts to work on it.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I'm good on the strategy side and the innovation and pulling things together and taking holistic views and figuring stuff out. That's great. That's my skill set. Going and doing the code, not so good, which again, when I was using Claude Code, that worked out pretty well because I knew enough to know when it was really screwing up and it wasn't telling me. It
Yeah.
was like, wait a second, I saw something in the code going back because I took 3 computer science courses in college and stuff. Nothing anyone would want me to actually use it practically in the industry. But again, I know how this stuff works and go, wait a second, no, you're doing that the wrong way,
For
sort of
sure.
thing.
And half the
Yeah,
challenge is knowing the outcome that you want. So that strategy piece is really important, and understanding
yeah.
what can be done is important, and then how things hang together.
And how they do it, is it taking shortcuts to actually use, here are the tools, this, or is there some shortcut that's going to create a lot of technological debt when you try to go change something in the future? And I've been through enough organizations working in very large with old legacy technologies, bleeding edge stuff, the whole gamut to understand, wait a second, you can really hurt yourself if you don't do this stuff technically the right way. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I know enough to be dangerous, I think is the,
very good, which is
yeah,
all we all need to get out
yeah.
there and build some stuff. Hey everyone, it's Tony here, and we'll be back with our guest in a short moment. But I just wanted to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by Viderio. Viderio is a platform that helps travel companies measure the true business impact and outcomes of their content creator work, not just vanity metrics. If you want to see how brands like Intrepid and Carpe Diem, or agencies like MMGY or GTI, or even destinations like Palau are gaining an advantage in creator marketing, at the moment, we've got a special offer for anybody who would like to try the Viderio platform. You can do so absolutely for free. We've got a case study that you can view to see exactly how the platform works. You can find it here in the show notes, and in there you'll also find how to sign up for the free trial. We'd love to see you and help you with your own social media journey, particularly on the content creator and influencer front. We look forward to working with you soon. Now back to the show. But a lot of the stuff you post online now is around digital identity, which is going to be a big part of how we move into an agentic world and need to have the trust of our agents to do work on our behalf, etc.
Sure.
Tell us how you fell into that and a little bit about the project that you're working on.
Sure. Yeah, I look at it as that really agentic AI is not going to work if you don't have the identity component nailed down. So Tony has his little agent. That's great, but people need to know that really is Tony's agent, and you have authorized it. You've delegated responsibility to it. Who made it? What's it doing? Who's it for? All of that sort of stuff. I was on a call earlier this morning with some heads of some tech firms and some hoteliers, and just talking about, you can't have someone just pretend to be the property management system. Hey, go to our GitHub repository. Here's the thing. Hook it up. It might not really be them.
Sure.
That's a really
Prompt
bad
injection
situation.
101.
Oh yeah, exactly. So a horrible situation. What I've been working on actually started literally 27 years ago, which is crazy. I was on the head of the board of directors, and this is when the internet was relatively new. Right? So that's all fine and good. And we thought, you've got to have some sort of content standard for hotels in that case. And we thought if you had a unique ID for the property, that would solve a lot of problems for everyone. And everybody agreed to it. It's been tried a few times and hit or miss. I brought it up to Hospitality Technology Next Generation, which was merged with the it's now part of the American Hotel and Lodging Association through the pandemic. But in 2019, I headed the work group on what's now Hospitality ID. And it was great. We had a couple hundred use cases. We had the preliminary schema and things like that. And yeah, I've been working on that. And in 2024, I dove into it full steam, changed around the scheme a little bit, formalized things, made it robust, built a proof of concept. And yeah, it basically assigns a unique identifier to the property. And a lot of people will go, oh, isn't there one for such and such for some sort of a cross-reference mapping table group or whatever? A geospatial group has another ID for the physical location. You go, yes, those are great. And you can point to those. But the concept's very simple. You have a unique identifier for the property, which is persistent, so it survives with the building or whatever that entity is. But a hotel is more than just a building. That's actually a business asset. It's not really a business, and you can have an owner, a management company, and a brand responsible for that property. And once you start getting into the data, you go, oh, wait a second. The loyalty program stuff belongs to, so let's pick on Marriott. It doesn't matter. And the license to be a hotel belongs to the owner, certainly. And maybe the ERP, the staff onboarding system belongs to the management company. You can't just say, this is it, go have it. It's more complicated than that. And unfortunately, for a typical 4-star hotel, they often have 40, 50 siloed systems, which don't really talk to each other. So the whole purpose of it is, how do you allow the controller of that business asset to define their sources of truth, right?
Yeah.
And say, that's really, those are my images of that room or the whole property or whatever they want to do. And you think of it like DNS, right? Which you don't need website URL names. You could just use IP addresses.
Yeah.
That's not very friendly, but you could do it. It's like that. So how do you define the ID? How do you give the control to the hoteliers who their big challenge is, oh my gosh, everybody's doing stuff to us. We've lost control. That's going to go onto steroids with agentic AI, right?
sure.
Because if you don't control your own data, someone else will.
Totally. And like the technology industry at the platform level are generally quite good at building standards that everyone adopts, and because they see that it's an advantage for everyone and a competitive advantage for no one, really. If everyone's not working in the same way, then the industry as a whole goes down. And so in that industry, they're quite good at understanding that, and that's why we have DNS protocols and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of open source stuff out there, which is probably a whole other discussion. But the travel industry,
Linux
the travel
Foundation
industry
is
is not
doing
good
great
at it.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh,
No, because for years it was vendor lock-in was the strategy. If you were a property management system company or central reservation system, once they got on your platform, you had this recurring revenue stream forever, because getting off of it was going to be so miserable because everything's proprietary. All the interfaces, those folks are paying to get certified, and then you're paying them to get, and you're just locked into something that's kind of a black box, right? Those are breaking down. But again, the more fragmentation you get on that, where, yeah, you got Benji, who's the resourceful guy, who's the food and beverage controller for the hotel, and he's just figured out how to do the wine inventory system and do all these things. That could be great, or that could be an unmitigated disaster if all of a sudden Benji's wine inventory system winds up getting into accounts payable. And I don't know, sending money to vendors to someone else. So yeah, it's a very complicated area. But yeah, so the concept for Hospitality ID actually is not to create a technology layer. It's just a simple registry with not much. It kind of has a name, this ID, an address, the phone numbers, and things like that. But then they just point to what happened. And then the whole ecosystem can start going. Then you can start using the really good identity stuff, which is not bleeding edge technology, these verifiable credentials, which you can cryptographically confirm that you are Tony, I am Robert. that is Mandarin Oriental, Hong Kong, whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden you can go, oh yeah, that's it. And with those credentials, you don't even really need internet access. It's just a private public key sort of thing. And you go, yep, that's good. That's real. Let's go.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's where we need to, where the industry needs to get to. And then I work with a lot of the different groups and interface with everyone from the Global Legal Entity Identifier Foundation, which is a mouthful, but these are the guys who are set up by the G20 to combat money laundering things
Right.
and human trafficking and some pretty big issues. And then there are other ones who are working on establishing IDs again for these agentic AIs. This group, Project Nanda out of MIT, is doing some really great stuff on that. And just almost weekly, there are these very interesting initiatives that are doing huge foundational plumbing sort of work. And I see my role to evangelize that to the hospitality and travel industry so you can get all the friction and all the difficulty out of the system.
Yeah, for sure. And ultimately, this leads to 1,000 more acronyms that we need to learn and understand that we need to be a part of. But one of those that I wanted to pick on specifically, because it's the one I know, I guess is the reason I'm asking, and just
Yep.
want to compare and contrast or understand,
Sure.
are you holding hands or is it duplication, is Poe, the one in the UK.
Huh.
And
Yeah.
and Alex Bainbridge, who's been a guest on this
Oh,
podcast, is kind of part of that group. And so I know about it through what Alex writes and whatever, and he
right.
lays down a very similar case that you've just laid down around this is non-competitive. Everybody just needs it.
Oh, no.
Like if we all have it, it works better. But do we need two? I guess is the question.
Yeah, and they're very complementary because Hat Pro came out of the Decentralized Identity Foundation Hospitality and Travel Special Interest Group, which is run by Nick Price, who's a great guy. And actually, Doug Rice and I have been very heavily involved in hospitality ID. And yeah, I was involved very heavily with that at the beginning when we did like the first 5 use cases and things like that. I've been a little bit more of a laggard and just watching them periodically engaging recently. But yeah, for what they're doing, and Doug Rice is heading the Hat Pro initiative. So that's the working group. What that is, it's a traveler profile. So in that case, the first use cases that they really have are for restaurants and like food sensitivities and things like that, because that's a really big area where you're getting into medical records because you look through it and you go, if someone has a specific allergy that can kill them, you probably want to somehow securely pass that through to the right people. So Hat Pro itself is working on the traveler profile. I'm looking at really the organizational ID for the hospitality entities because they're just a little bit weird and different from an airline or Amazon or something like that, which are these very centralized, monolithic sort of organizations. The global hospitality industry, the amazing part is nobody knows how many hotels there are on the planet. Even those people who are responsible for counting them, like the UN or the CoStar people who now have STR and things like, they don't really know. And that's just insane.
Yeah.
That's not, yeah.
And so they're complementary in the way that the Hat Pro ID will identify the person as being that person, and then it will say, okay, this
Well,
person.
it's actually not really a Hat Pro ID. It's a profile
Okay.
that's tied. It's their hospitality and traveler profile, which is tied to their personal ID. So that ID could be, if you live in the EU, that could be the new EU digital identity wallet, which is coming out and that sort of thing that's going to have your unique identifier. If you're in India, they already have identifiers for their people. They're now working on something called Doot, which will give actually each of those people with their identifiers their own agent to work on things. So the Hat Pro, you would basically, it's not anything that's mandatory. You can just attach to it. So you go, hi, I'm Robert, and the US is not quite as forward on actually, I'll just step back. The interesting thing on identity is you have 3 completely different approaches going on globally. You have China, very central state control of the identity profiles and things like that. That's certainly one method. You've got the EU, which is very much individual. Every identity or identifier is completely decentralized. It's at the individual level with a lot of regulatory friction to make sure that's happening properly. And then you have the US, which isn't really doing much. And they've just ceded control to the platform. So you go, wait a second, is it the state, the platform, or the individual in charge? Depends on who you're working with, right? So with this, with Hat Pro, the cool thing about it and Decentralized Identity Foundation, it's okay, who do you trust for your ID? And if you're in China, you're going to say, I trust that the Chinese government issued ID for that. That's great. It works with that. If it's the EU, you go, yeah, there's a digital identity wallet. Yeah, I'm attaching it to that. If you're in the US, I don't know, you're attaching it to Google, to Apple, to Amazon, to, I don't know, somebody,
Tick a
you know,
tick. Yeah.
X, I
Yeah.
have no idea. So it's whoever you trust. And then again, it comes down to if for some reason you don't trust that other group, don't accept that profile. Now there may be the, oh, I can't now interact cryptographically and really do things genetically very smoothly with them because I don't like their trust provider. But that's okay. That's fine. Those are business decisions, and that those will work themselves out.
Yeah. All right. So let me take my very small brain and try and interpret what you've told me there. If we say that the identity is held in a wallet, and then this Hat Pro thing is an app that you could put inside that wallet if you wish. That's how I understood what you've said to me there. And then yeah, in China, the government says you have to have this wallet or nothing works. So you forget it.
Yeah.
And in Europe, I think they're also saying you have to have this wallet if you want to do certain things like check into a hotel anywhere. That's one of the things they're saying, right?
Yes, but each EU country, the way they're set up, is coming up with their own wallets. And I think France has approved 30 of them, something like that.
Right.
So they're all covered under the spec. So you could have your own individual this, your individual that. But as long as France and the EU have kind of said, you're doing it the right way, that's good. We see how it works. Good. You're certified. Go use it as a wallet because then that wallet, the way they've set it up, will interoperate with other stuff, which is great.
Perfect. Yeah. Do you know if Google and Apple are part of that kind of certified wallet structure for the EU?
I don't think, no, I don't think either of those two are.
Okay.
The interesting thing with Google is here in the US, I don't think they're doing it in other countries yet. They were doing mobile driver's license before, which was great. Both Apple and Google came out and they have a new one because I have an Android, that sort of thing. You can scan your little chip in your passport and it creates a verifiable credential for Google. Now, it's a little bit different. A lot of times that's a verifiable credential from the US government for the passport issuance, but it's not. It actually creates a Google credential. So they are the actual issuer. So you're in the Google world and ecosystem, and it's going to make things really easy for you. But then again, it's the classic Google versus Apple sort of thing. Apple will probably take a similar-ish approach. I'm not sure exactly how they'll do it, but it'll probably work really well within the Apple ecosystem and probably have some, let's call it unnecessary friction for those outside the walled garden, because that's how they behave. Yeah. And that's an interesting thing again, that if you're a hotel, you have to be able to deal with that, right?
Yeah. So AI is moving rapidly. We all know that. Things are happening on the daily. As of today, OpenAI just got another $110 billion to continue doing what they're doing. Agentic's on its way. People building their own agents at home and they're just manufacturing stuff as we go. And these are out in the world. And doing stuff already.
Yep.
At what, in your estimation, from a best guess point of view, at what point does someone like somewhere like the US get a standard that is this wallet that people are using and it's checking? It has to happen soon, right? Because these things are already
you would think. What's interesting is there's actually the state of Utah, of all places, which people would not be picking to be the center of identity technology innovation, that they actually, I think it was passed by the Senate and is going to the House of Representatives somewhere at the state level, but it's called SETI, State Endorsed Digital Identity. And what happened is there was a company called Evernym that was in Utah, did a lot of identity stuff. I think they were very involved in the Sovereign Foundation and things like that. They did all this really great identity stuff. They're driving the standard and it's done the right way. So it's state endorsed, but it's very interesting. The ISO standard for mobile driver's licenses is used in a lot of places, but it has a little bit of functionality, which I don't know how they're going to pull out or constrain, because now it's a policy thing versus what's in the standard, but it's server retrieval. which basically they're calling in the industry phone home. So what you probably don't, maybe some people don't care because they just don't have any interest. If it's convenient, they'll use it. But that kind of gives the issuer of the credential the ability to find out every place that credential was used. And that's not good from a surveillance perspective, right?
No.
And if someone promising, I promise not to use it, probably is not good enough.
Do no evil.
Just
Do no evil.
yeah.
Right.
So anyway, mobile driver's licenses have that issue. And a lot of, like in the US, the states are like, oh, no, we would never do that. So you can, though.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's a problem. The SETI thing does not allow that. And so they've started there. And I believe they have about a dozen states that are very interested in adopting this, which weirdly enough, they don't really trust the federal government to do it in the US.
No comment.
So they're doing it themselves. And it may be one of those things where they do it, it works well. And again, if it's truly decentralized identity, it's like the EU, right? They have 27 EU states who are all working under the EU. The US could probably do the same thing like
For
that.
sure.
And I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, there's a lot of good, really good things happening on
Cool.
that.
We've got 4 minutes left, and I'm going to ask
Sure.
you a question that's going to take 20 minutes to answer. So do the best you can in the 4 minutes we've got.
Recap my background again. Oh,
I'm a small hotelier, or I own a small tour operation business, or what have you, and that's
Right.
who's listening to this. Like, what do I need to do? All this stuff that you've talked about, this identity, like,
Right.
is somebody going to tell me what I need to do? Am I going to be contacted by my local state or whatever and say that I need to do something, or do I need to be proactive? What do I need to do?
The first thing from the agentic guy is really to get your website organized, not necessarily on the identity side, to lock everything down security-wise, two-factor authentication, passkeys, all those sort of things to make sure it's secure and nobody can come in and start doing untoward things with you. But that's number one. And then making sure that you have really schema fully developed. So an AI agent and an LLM, those sorts of things, if LLM's being trained on data, it can understand what you're doing. That's critically important. Now, that is not a guarantee if you do everything absolutely perfectly, that an LLM's ever going to see you, because I don't know, if there's 600 hotels in your area,
Yeah.
something like that, it's not going to check all 600. It's going to go to the tools it trusts, and that might be an online travel agent. Yeah, it could be anybody. But anyway, that's what you need to do. The identity side is going to be very much a jurisdiction by a jurisdiction sort of thing. We're trying to stand up the hospitality ID initiative. It requires some funding, which is about $3 million. We've got some people who are interested in it, which to the industry is a very small amount, but you've got to get the founders to get it started. So if that happens, give it about 9 months to a year to develop, and then all of a sudden it's great. Now you can use this, start pointing to your sources of truth and saying, this is this, that's that. And virtually everyone has said, oh, that's great. If that existed, we would use that as a source because we know that's where it goes. And as verifiable credentials, things like that pop up around the world, you can just start going, and that's my credential. That is the digital representation or the digital certificate that says, I run this hotel. It's me. I'm the real thing. Right?
AI, in the travel, here we go. Got that AI on the low, taking flights to and fro, booking trips in a snap with a simple chat bot.